This is my wrap up for May. It went. I have quite a few books here that I did read in physical copies, but they have been moved around while I am still trying to organise my bookshelves, so there won't be a lot of visuals in this wrap up. I've been taking a course with Glasgow University, which is Introduction to the Ancient Near East, and so we were given a particular translation of the Epic of Gilgamesh by Andrew R. George to read. This was through the university, so it was an ebook. And I really loved this. I don't really know what I was expecting. I didn't really have much of a background with like Mesopotamia and that entire area, honestly. And I only really sort of knew it from the Carmilla web series, so it was really interesting to actually, read the text. I really enjoyed the translation. I thought it was really good in that it was enjoyable, but also really good in that I really liked where they specified which tablets they were translating from, what was like conjecture, which was, what parts of the tablets had broken off, and so this is like the likely translation. I really enjoyed all of that. I gave it 4 stars, however, because the introduction was as dry as bones, and I couldn't hack it. I usually quite like reading introductions, and that was a bit disappointing. So 4 stars, but great translation. Next was Scottish Castles Photographs by Colin Baxter. This I got secondhand. I don't know where or why, and I didn't really like it. Like, they're lovely photographs, but in quite a few cases, it's been taken with like a photographer's eye, so the castle is like really small and in the distance, but you got all this lovely nature around it. And you usually only get one picture of the castle as well. Most of them are only, listed like Three Castle, Dumfries and Galloway, and whatever century it was built in, or whatever clan was seated there. Some of them give some more information. I have basically used this as a trip planner, but yeah, it's lovely, but not much. After that, I went through my currently reading, which I think was over 20 at that point, and I DNF'd some, and The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna was not continued. It's not a bad book, and I think it was really starting to get going, but also I wasn't that enthralled by what I had read so far, and I have so many books. So it just was not a priority. And you can kick me for that, honestly, because I read City of Sand by Tianxia Bachang and translated by Jeremy Kang. Yeah, so I have compared this unfavorably to Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, was it? The one with the ending. Yeah, the really offensive one. It is part of the tomb robbing genre, which I love, and it is just as offensive as you think, based on that description, probably more so. I do want to write something in that vein, however, so yeah, that is my excuse. But yeah, this is not rated highly, and I don't really suggest that you read it because it's painful, just like in a quality way, but also I do think that the Grave Robbers Chronicles Down the BG is a lot more fun, uh, and a little bit less offensive if tomb robbing is something that interests you. I'd say that's the one to go for. My favourite book of the month was The Hidden Moon by Jeannie Lynn. This is set in the Tang Dynasty, and it is a murder mystery romance. This is the third book in the series. Unfortunately, I do think something happened with the publisher, perhaps, because this wasn't published by the same people, and it's really hard to get copies of book 1 and 2. Like, I'm talking secondhand, because you can't really get new ones, or at least I can't find any new ones, unfortunately. But yeah, so this was my favourite book. It was a very lovely romance, and it follows Lady Bai, who teams up with this kind of scoundrel, would you say, and they have to put their heads together to figure out what is going on. A prince has been murdered in the city, and yeah, it's really cool. I don't like crime that much. I don't really like thrillers that much, but I was really invested in it, and I was really invested in them, and I really wish I could get the first 2 books. So after that, I read Princess Saves Herself in this one by Amanda Lovelace. I had 3 or 4 of her poetry books, and organising the shelves, I reread that one and did not particularly care for it anymore. That style of poetry was not really working for me, so all of them are on the way out, but I do remember that I did really enjoy them at one point. Likewise, Hatsune Mix by Kay is also going out, and this was Vocaloids, which was a big thing for me at one point, and I really loved it. It's unofficial comics, and they are basically AUs every time. Very meta, kind of funny, kind of sad, kind of heartwarming, also just like not really my thing anymore, so yeah. After that, it was a reread of Wayne, LGBT Reimaginings of Scottish Folklore by Rachel Plummer and illustrated by Helen Boppert. And this is a reread, and I really enjoyed this. This isn't in the out pile, by the way. I really enjoyed it. It is illustrated beautifully, and the poetry is really fun. Yeah, it's just a nice wee collection, and I enjoy reading it. The book group pick was A Kiss Before Dying by Ira Levin, which, I got it the day of because I wasn't going to get it, but they were talking about it and talking about like the techniques and all that and how it is. It didn't work for me. I think I was like 9 or 10 when I got Silence of the Lambs from the primary school bringing by, and I didn't get it. I remember talking to Mum and her saying, it's scary because it could be real, and I just read it and thought, oh, this is naff. And that's kind of what I felt with A Kiss Before Dying. It was like, I think for this kind of book I am just like Teflon. It just kind of goes over me. Doesn't stick. I really enjoyed the book group though. I really enjoyed the discussions and what was happening and how and set up and payoff and all that, but did not work for me. Speaking of things not working for me, I have stated that there were a few reasons possibly for me doing this. Really, it just came down to the fact that I got an email notification saying that my e-audiobook loan of The Great Gatsby was ending, and I don't remember why I took it out, and I really regret giving it my time. It's over now, and that's good. It was narrated by Humphrey Bauer, which was fine. I don't think anything could have made the process enjoyable for me, honestly. It wasn't that guy's fault though. So, and after that, it was Love Code by Mcguire, which kind of breaks my heart. I adored Strange Love by Mcguire, the first book. I read it last year. It was alien romance, very smutty alien romance, and it kind of took my breath away. It was a very I'd heard a lot of good things about it by people whose opinions at least intrigued me, if not that I trust them, and yeah, it sure was something. I thought it was amazing. I loved the characters and I loved the romance, which was so incredibly sweet. And it wasn't a humanoid alien, or rather, it wasn't a human Photoshop purple, which I really liked. It was almost insectoid, I guess. It was really interesting and I loved it. And this was following, Love Code was following an AI. And you know what? I kind of liked the AI, and I liked the love interest, and I liked the world building, but I didn't like the book. I don't even think I got halfway through it, and I just, all of the pieces were there, and it just didn't come together for me, unfortunately, and I'm still very upset about this. Another book group pick, Ghost Ride by Hope Zane. I really enjoyed this one. It was very atmospheric, and I really loved the apocalypse being when you didn't know if the sun was ever going to come up again. It kind of felt like it was hinting at a super volcano having gone off, that you're trapped in darkness. It was very good and very atmospheric, and I liked as well when you were going into towns, just for this idea of normality, the lights blaring and everywhere else just being so dark. And I mentioned this on Twitter in my red thread that I sometimes struggle. There have been months where my sleeping is just impossible to pin down, and I've gone 3 weeks, maybe a month, probably 3 weeks of time just drifting in and out, never seeing the sun and never having the light on, and coming down for food at 2 in the morning, and that's the only light that you have. And so I really liked this because it really kind of struck a nerve with me in that kind of apocalyptic atmosphere. And this is about a very close relationship between sisters, and it's their tension. I really loved it. The writing is lovely. I don't usually give trigger warnings because these aren't supposed to be recommendations. They're just me saying what I thought about a book. But content warning for incest. Like I said, I thought it was a very interesting tension and atmosphere, and I enjoyed it. But yeah, content warning. After that, I reread. After that, I finished my reread of Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert, which I was a little bit nervous about. This was, I think, the first time I'd ever seen someone write about chronic fatigue, and that really was great. I know, like, she has, I think, fibromyalgia, and so the chronic fatigue was just like this thing that is part of fibromyalgia, whereas for me it was like everything else is part of the chronic fatigue. But it was still really nice to see that, and I loved their banter. I loved how supportive that they were, and I'd never actually reread romance before, like, so I was a wee bit worried as to how I was gonna see it, like, because some books you just love, but you never have to reread them again, and I really enjoyed the reread. I'm really happy with that. So yeah, I'm going to this month get through Take a Hint, Danny Brown, and hopefully get to the third, which is Act Your Age, Eve Brown. Yeah, it's a great series, and I'm really happy that I can go back to it. So speaking of, like, clearing things up, my currently reading is actually 18, so big success there. I went back and finished a book that I started in January in the name of that, and it's Attack to Me, which is a collection of Arctic horror stories, and all by Indigenous writers. There was one which was very kind of sci-fi-ish, and I only like a very narrow band of sci-fi. It wasn't for me. The rest, however, I would say are all about 4 or 5 stars. The first one kept me up for hours. I had to have the light on, which was delightful at the time. But I really appreciate it now in hindsight, when I'm not scared of my wits. And there was another one that kind of got under my skin in a way that made me a wee bit queasy. Again, I really appreciate that on an artistic level. On a personal one, it's a wee bit. But yeah, this was great, honestly. Yeah.